Hi everybody, my name is Dan Appenfeller. I'm the managing editor here at the Diamondback, and I'm here today with Aaron Kasnitz, the Terrapins men's basketball beat reporter, and Daniel Gallen, the Terrapins men's basketball columnist. And we're here today to talk to you about the final regular season meeting between Duke and Maryland as members of the ACC. So Aaron, Maryland's coming off a hard-fought loss to Virginia down in Charlottesville. What are they going to have to do to bounce back from that and maybe pull out a win in Durham?
I think it's pretty clear that Maryland's been playing better lately. They beat Florida State pretty convincingly, and the game against Virginia wasn't poorly played. They just didn't quite pull it out. So against Duke, the big thing with Duke is they have great defensive pressure. They love to pressure you. So for Maryland, a lot of pressure is going to be put on Seth Allen. A lot of pressure is going to be put on Des Wells. Maybe Nick Faust coming off the bench. A big knock on Maryland this year has been their turnovers. Because Lehman and Smotrich, two starters, don't handle the ball well. It really comes down to Allen and Wells, maybe Faust, handling that defensive pressure, getting the Terps into their sets. If they do that, it could be a game. But if not, Duke's really going to have the edge because their defensive pressure can get to you quick.
Daniel, what do you think the Terps are going to have to do?
Well, Duke puts up points at a pretty good pace with Jabari Parker, Rashid Suleiman. They just have an assortment of guys that can go off at any moment. So for the Terps, it's going to be containing the Duke scores and maybe trying to keep things close there at the end. You know, their defense has been better this year, but the one thing Mark Turgeon really harps on a lot is seeing better D out of his players. And if they want to leave Cameron with a win on Saturday, it's going to come down to their defense.
So the Terps are going to have to play good offense, good defense if they want to get one last win in
If
Durham. The Terps, you know, they've been back and forth in this series. They've won the last two against Duke last year, but, you know, in the last about 10 years or so, they've really been on the losing side of this rivalry. Aaron, what are your favorite memories of this rivalry?
Yeah, well, growing up around here, there's a lot of losing teams in this area. Grew up as a Redskins fan, not great. Grew up as an Orioles fan. They made the playoffs in 2012 for the first time in my life, I think. Well, first time since I was 4 or 5. So Wizards never been great, but Maryland in the early 2000s, they were as good of a team as there was in college basketball. And the Maryland-Duke rivalry was really where it was at. North Carolina had 2 down years, 01, 02. Those 2 years they were down, and Maryland and Duke were great rivalries. They played 4 times in 2001. I've mentioned this to you guys before, but I left my Boy Scouts camping when I was like 8 years old. We had a camping day. I left it to go watch Maryland-Duke in the Final Four. Maryland has a big lead, and they blow it. Next year, Maryland comes back, wins the championship. That all happened on the national stage. Nothing else in this area has really been on the national stage, but Maryland in the early 2000, 2001, 2002 years, they were on the national stage, and their rivalry versus Duke was where their most intense games were.
Daniel, Aaron grew up in Montgomery County. You're a proud Harford County resident. What memories do you have of this rivalry?
I remember the early 2000s as well. I mean, I don't really know what it was or how it happened. Both my parents are transplants to the area, so I didn't really grow up, being raised by one of them, indoctrinated into being a Terps fan. But, I mean, Maryland basketball, when you watched it with Juan Dixon and Steve Blake in the late 90s, early 2000s, that's just sort of what it was. Like, that was stuff at its highest level. And I just remember watching those Maryland-Duke games and just, I was just very fascinated. I don't really know how it happened, but I just kind of had that, like, a little bit of that Duke hate ingrained in me when I was little, just from being around it. And, that in 2010, the Maryland-Duke game, I remember watching it, and I wasn't really sure where I was going to go to school yet for college, but I just watched that game, and I remember just texting, I forget who I texted, just one of my best friends afterwards, and I was like, I think I can go to school there after that.
Well, these two will have just a little bit more time to hold on to their love for this rivalry when they go down to Durham on Saturday to watch the Terps square off with the Blue Devils in Cameron Indoor Stadium. They'll both be there. You can follow them on Twitter. Aaron is at Aaron Kaz Reports, and Daniel is at Daniel JT Allen. And until next time, thanks for watching.